Welcome to the Configure Price Quote podcast. My name is Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. Hello everyone and welcome to this week's CPQ podcast episode, another solo episode. So contrary to what I said last week, we have still problems aligning our guest schedule. And that's also because lots of guests actually prefer to come on when they have something new to announce, right? So that could be a product launch, that could be a strategic update on something, a funding event, M&A or some other company milestone, right? So that makes sense, of course, but it also means there are times when I want to cover something important in the market before I can actually get the right guest onto the show, and that is really the case with today's episode. But I thought what I do this week is I attended the Conga Connect 2026 event in Orlando, Florida, and I wanted to share a few timely takeaways rather this time than wait until later, right? So I should also mention that I have already extended an invitation to the Conga leadership team to join me on an upcoming CPQ podcast episode, and I do expect that we will have them on fairly soon. Even though with the recent experience, I'm a little bit more careful to say that, right? So think of this episode as a high-level event debrief, and then hopefully we will follow it up with a direct conversation with Conga leadership in the near future. So with that, what stood out to me at Conga Connect? The biggest takeaway for me was that Conga is clearly trying to tell a broader story than it has in the past. So this event was not just about CPQ, it was not just about CLM either. The new company used the event to introduce a new global brand and to position itself around a more connected commercial operations story. And I saw a couple of people pretty excited about this with the new purple color. Anyway, in simple terms, Conga wants to be seen, from my point of view, as helping companies connect pricing, quoting, legal, finance, and revenue processes more efficiently, right? And I think that broader positioning matters because for a long time, many people in the market tended to view Conga in narrower terms, including myself. Some saw Conga mainly as the CLM companies, others associated it primarily with CPQ, that's my camp, and others thought of document automation first. What Conga is trying to do now is present a more complete commercial process story. One that actually connects the pricing story, quoting, contracting, and downstream revenue-related workflows under one broader message. Okay, that's the first one. The second important takeaway is that Conga is not telling a simple consolidation story right now. Based on what was presented and discussed at the event, the company intends to continue supporting three CPQ paths. The older Salesforce-based Conga CPQ, the newer Conga Advantage CPQ that runs on other platforms as well, and the PROS CPQ solution. And I think it's important because a lot of people in the market, including myself, naturally assumed that after the acquisition, one product becomes the clear winner and the others gradually may fade away or getting merged into it. But that's not the near-term message here. Instead, Conga appears to be trying to preserve multiple product paths, at least for now. For existing customers, that may be reassuring because it reduces the fear of near-term disruption. For prospects, though, it also means the product story is not yet simple, right? Buyers still need to understand which solution fits their use case, their architecture, and the long-term direction best. At the same time, there does appear to be a clear directional split emerging. PROS CPQ seems to be positioned more for complex manufacturing, industrial, chemicals, and distribution environments, same as before, right? While Advantage is increasingly being presented as the main innovation platform within the broader Conga portfolio. Now, I would not overstate that point. I do not think the segmentation is fully settled yet, but it was noticeable to me. And I think that distinction matters because if Conga keeps moving in that direction, it will eventually become more important for customers, prospects, and implementation partners to understand where each offering fits best. Today, I would still describe that as an emerging pattern rather than a fully locked down market segmentation, but it's definitely something worth watching, right? Another detail that stood out to me was how Conga seems to be thinking about existing Salesforce-based customers. One point mentioned at the event was that some Advantage capabilities can be accessed through a Salesforce-launched experience, an iFrame actually. So from a customer perspective, that could mean staying in a familiar Salesforce Center environment while newer functionality is actually being delivered from the Advantage platform behind the scenes. To me, that's pretty meaningful, the detail, because it suggests a more gradual adoption path rather than some kind of forced migration story. And I think that matters because of the biggest questions existing customers usually have in situations like this is what happens to me if the vendor's innovation focus starts moving somewhere else? Do I eventually have to migrate? Do I lose access to newer capabilities? Do I need a major transformation project just to stay current? What Conga seems to be signaling, at least directionally, is a bridge approach. That does not answer every roadmap question, but it does suggest a more pragmatic transition model than a hard push from the Salesforce-based product. Another big theme was cross-portfolio expansion. The most immediate connection to be bringing price optimization from the former Pro side into the Conga CPQ solution. And on the other side, CLM appears to be something Conga wants to extend more meaningfully into the Pro's customer base over time. That struck me as one of the more logical parts of the overall story. If Conga can bring stronger pricing capabilities into its broader CPQ portfolio, that is strategically important, right? And if it can also expand CLM further into the Pro side of the customer base, that gives the company a clear cross-portfolio value story. AI was also everywhere in the messaging, no surprise, like everywhere else. So Conga talked a lot about their AiMe solution, that's their AI. And I think the important thing there is not to think of it as just a chatbot. It's really positioned as a broader AI system that includes agents, predictive models, modular AI service across different parts of the commercial process. That broader framing is worth noting because right now, almost every enterprise software company is talking about AI. The difference is in how they position it and whether it becomes embedded in real workflows. In Conga's case, the message was clearly that AI is meant to sit across the commercial process rather than exist as a narrow standalone feature. So when I step back and look at the event overall, my view is this. Conga's strategic story feels clearer than it has in prior years. The company seems to have a more coherent way of explaining where pricing, CPQ, CLM, AI, and the broader commercial process fit together. But the key question to me is still execution. It's one thing to tell a more unified story. It's another thing to support multiple product lines over time, align roadmaps, rebuild partner confidence, and bring different teams and product cultures together in a way that really works for customers. And that to me is where listeners should stay focused, right? So customers should watch for roadmap clarity. They should watch for how real the integration becomes across pricing, CPQ, CLM, and AI. They should watch how Conga supports the install base across the different CPQ offerings. And they should also watch whether partners become more engaged and confident in Conga's direction. Because partner trust and execution capability will matter if Conga really wants more system integrators to play a bigger role, as they mentioned at the event. So my high-level conclusion is that Conga Connect showed a clearer direction than I think many people have seen from Conga in recent years. That by itself is meaningful, but customers and prospects should still watch closely to see how that direction turns into product execution, roadmap clarity, and long-term support across the different CPQ paths. And as I mentioned at the beginning, I do expect to have Conga leadership on the CPQ podcast soon, which should give us a chance to explore some of these topics more directly with the company. That's it for today's episode. And for those of you who want to have a deeper analysis, including more detailed observations from the event, that will be covered in the CPQ Circle newsletter, which is part of the CPQ Circle subscription. So now, before I say goodbye, I want to let you know that I want to take some time for the spring break to address our scheduling issue, so that you don't have to listen to only me, right? So that means the next podcast episode now will, with this spring break, be on April 5th. And thank you very much for listening. I hope it was helpful, and then I hope we get to a more regular schedule back in April. Thank you very much, everyone. I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com.